You've been home for a couple of years now, buddy, but you're still fighting the war.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Shoulder to Shoulder, where we tell stories to help bridge the Civ Mill gap. And also, occasionally, we dive into national security issues that affect active duty service members, veterans, military family members, and even civilians who are willing to learn. I am Will Selber. People sometimes call me Grumpy, GCV, Colonel Selber. I've been called a lot of things, some of them good, some of them not. And I'm all right with that. I want to say to all the listeners, we thank you very much for subscribing. And if you haven't, start doing push-ups. I mean, come on. It's free. Just help out. Support the troops is what I say. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. Sorry, I'm not going to go where that went. I'm going to stop talking and then also introduce the person over here. For some of our longtime listeners, OGs, they'll know this guy to my right over here, or if you're just listening. He's got a big retirement beard. It's luscious. If he was in Afghanistan, some people might think he's a Talib. It's one of my good buddies, James Metter, who we deployed together on the Kapisa and Parwa and PRT over how long ago? 16 years ago. It's okay, baby. We're still young. Keep saying that. That's what I do. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? Nice to be back with you.
Man, it's always a pleasure, man, when I get to see my friends. My mentor, Jonathan V. Last, who's an editor at Bulwark, said that, doing podcasts for him was just like catching up with his friends. So, hey, what a blessing in life. Well, I'm going to stop talking so much, maybe, and we're going to delve into a subject that we often do here, Afghanistan. Let's delve into something that most people will relate to, okay? We'll save the terrorism stuff a little bit later. We'll delve into some breaking news. I didn't report on it. Somebody else reported on it, Reuters. The Afghan evac has been blaring it out on their sirens. God bless everyone at Afghan evac. They're doing the Lord's work over there. I'm a big fan of the people inside of it. Reuters doing excellent work as well. So basically, not to belabor the point, but it looks like the Trump administration is poised to slash basically any support for Operation Enduring Welcome. For those who don't know what that is, Operation Enduring Welcome is the operation that's been going on for a while to get our Afghan allies out. It's been going on for a while because it never stopped. Not a lot of press reporting on that through the last 4 years of the Biden administration, that people were still coming out of Afghanistan. But it happened. It was going on. And for various reasons, nobody talked about it. I won't, go into that too much. We are now at a point, it seems like, if this is all accurate, that about 200,000 Afghans who are not in the pipeline or who are not here in the United States could be affected. I think the number is 2,500, those who are related to the people in the military. It's all bad, okay? It's not good, people. I'll be writing about it for the Bulwark and here and there and everywhere. James, my man, what do you think? Good idea? Bad idea? What are your initial thoughts?
So, off the cuff, my initial reaction is not surprised.
By the way, this is a non-alcoholic beer. Some people are going to think I'm drinking again. Non-alcoholic. Go ahead, James. I don't want to scare somebody or something. Shit. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so not surprising, to be honest with you. I think it's easy for these sorts of programs to get turned on and off in the shadows because that's where mostly it's been. And so if it weren't for Reuters reporting on it, if it weren't for folks that are really interested in the topic, I don't think it would even really get acknowledged. It would just kind of fade away in the background and affect a bunch of folks who I think everybody who served with Afghans feel like have earned the right and earned the respect that the American public should hold true to the promises that we made.
That's exactly right. And for those who don't know James did how many deployments to Afghanistan?
So I've been to Afghanistan 3 times.
3 times.
2 of those were deployments. One of them was a TDY. So what that means is I didn't spend as much time in Afghanistan as I did the other 2 times. I've been to Afghanistan 3 times. And then I did a tour in an MQ-9 wing where I supported ops in Afghanistan for 3 years straight.
So I
Well,
think that qualifies you as someone who can speak intelligently to this subject, and somebody who cares deeply, and is written for our webpage at Grumpy Combat Veteran. Right now it says GCV Friends. That's going to end very soon. More to come on that. I'm going just back to the roots, I must say. No, yeah, man, I got to totally agree with what you're saying. And one of the things that you said in that very eloquent response is that, it's going to affect a lot of people. And I think let's tease it out for those people who don't give a shit about Afghans. Hey, man, I encounter all sorts of people in American life, and I've just had people be like, well, I don't really give a shit. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk this way. It's okay. We'll just go our separate ways. This is why you should care, because there's not all Afghan combat veterans are like me and James. No, some of them don't care. Some of them think, screw it. But there's a sizable portion of them who do care, who have friends or who know people who have friends that are in Afghanistan still. Me and James both served alongside of Richie. And for those who don't know Richie was our interpreter, and he was in an IED where he lost both of his legs. And he's an American citizen by the grace of God. And so, yeah, I mean, he's going to be affected. I know friends of mine who were in the military. I won't say her name. But she has family members. She's an American hero, an Air Force hero, a female. Not a lot of them that could speak her language up in the air. I know she's got tons of family members. She's in my prayers tonight. My phone's been blowing up all day. It's a devastating news, James, for a lot of Afghans who are in the United States. Some of them American citizens, some of them green card holders, some of them in the process of trying to become American citizens, because they all have family members somewhere stuck, I would imagine. It's disappointing.
Beyond just the disappointing side of it, right? So those
Yeah.
of us that are emotionally invested in the outcome of keeping the promises
Right.
that we made, right? There's the frustration or there's a disappointment in the fact that this happens. I think we have to take into consideration as we sort of start to unpack these things. On the surface, what we've done is we've stopped the inflow of immigrants from Afghanistan, right? We would make the argument they've earned that, but we stopped that inflow, right? I think that's the surface effect of this. What's the things that happen below the surface, right? We're broken promises that turn into grievances. Right. We're talking separation of families in long term, putting mental stress on folks that are here that have been struggling through this process to get their families here. And now we're adding more to their stressors side of the stressor and coping mechanism equation. And so it puts them at risk of suicide, for instance, as one thing. Also, one of the hardest threats to be able to identify is insider threat, lone wolf actors, right? And so now we're taking people that were pro-American, and we've seen this happen in the villages of Afghanistan, right? But why would the streets of America be immune? Where we take people who are pro-American, that love of democracy and freedom, and we go and have one operation go awry, or one CivCas event, or even rolling up a Taliban commander, where then we see a shift in the dynamic by which we were seeing going into those villages, right? So I think there's some risk that we start to turn people that are pro-American, that see America as an opportunity, to now seeing America for being bad partners. And then, where that can go on to, I mean, there's a gamut of emotional responses.
Thank you. Let me mark on that. All right. Thank you. Yeah, man, like, I agree with all of that. All of that. I am a big occurrence of what you just said. Veteran suicide, homelessness, drinking, domestic abuse. Not just for veterans, civilians who are involved in this. A lot of good people have become involved in the Afghan evac effort. Some of them didn't serve in the military. Some of them even don't. Some of them who have done a lot to help Afghanistan, curiously, were in favor of the Afghan retrograde. It's a curious position that's almost completely indefensible, but I won't belabor that point. I will just say this. It's all bad, and I don't care what you used to believe in the past. I'm willing to just stop caring and whatever you used to believe. And if you think this is a bad thing, happy to have you jump on board. Because let me tell you what this is all going to be. You're going to have a disgruntled population inside a country where about 2 months ago, somebody rammed a car into New Orleans. He wasn't an Afghan, but he was an American combat veteran of Afghanistan. And somewhere along the way, that man got flipped. I don't know how. I've stopped paying attention because my mental health is important to me, and I just don't want to be so depressed. But somebody flipped that man online, in person. It's hard to say. He killed a lot of Americans on New Year's Day. If you don't think that can be replicated over and over again, the Islamic State's propaganda is quite good, people. It's actually very good. It's cutting edge. They do an absolutely fabulous job. It's my opinion. I wish sometimes our propaganda was as good. And this kind of, James, kind of relates to another topic that we were talking about. There's been some reporting about it, from the people who care about such things, which isn't many. Like the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, our good friend Bill Raggio at Long War Journal, the GOAT, as far as I'm concerned, of open source intelligence. We'll put the link in the show, in the show notes, but go and, Pakistan and Tajik Taliban open training camps in Afghanistan. This was all from the United Nations Sanctions and Monitoring Team report, which also, for those that don't know why you should care about the United Nations, somewhere there's somebody who's like, I hate the United Nations. I don't really give a shit. The United Nations Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring are pros who get access to other countries' intelligence, however much they want to share, and then they put it together, and then they provide this information. Is every single part of it 100% accurate? No. You know what else isn't? Anything in life. So moving right along. This is what they've been saying. Basically that now that there is more Taliban opening training camps in Afghanistan, those from outside the country. Because the Taliban isn't just part in Afghanistan, right, James? I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah, and in most of the time where the U.S. was involved in Afghanistan, Pakistan was their safe haven. Anybody that studies insurgencies knows, like, one of the key tenets of a successful insurgency is foreign aid, foreign support, and that safe haven, the ability to escape attack or to plan, long-term plan attack and strategies. And so, no matter which side of the fence on reality you fall on, Pakistan played a role in enabling the Afghan Taliban to be successful at thwarting the U.S. and the West and all of our allies' attempts to rid Afghanistan of the Taliban. Pakistan was a safe haven for them. But what that meant was, inside that safe haven, the Taliban sort of fractured into a group that cared more about Afghanistan and a group that cared more about Pakistan. And so you have a flavor of the Taliban and a cadre of Taliban that are Pakistani who now are on the opposite role, where their safe haven has become Afghanistan, and now their long-term ability to plan attacks and their ability to fall back and evade attacks by the Pakistani government and military in their attempts to purge Pakistan of this foreign or this terrorist element inside their own country. The roles seem to have reversed a little bit. And so on one side, you think, well, Pakistan is getting what they have paid for by supporting the Afghan Taliban for so many decades now. The shoes on the other foot. But that's the little bit of silver lining, but that coin has two sides, right? So
100%.
That support base that is now being solidified in Afghanistan to be what it was pre 9/11, where Al Qaeda now has 14 provinces of the 34 in the country where they have training camps. Now other terrorist organizations are opening their own training camps. Afghanistan is demonstrating that it will be a platform for projection of terrorist attacks.
I mean, it's already happening, right? I mean, so look, The Islamic State has been conducting attacks on the United States. It started a long time ago. Just had one before that, 2017. I don't know. They've been trying to do it. Just because it only happens twice doesn't mean that that's the only 2 times that people have been trying to do it. So Afghanistan is now, you got Pakistani Taliban, you got Tajik Taliban. If you go to Lynn O'Donnell's Substack, well, is probably one of the best journalists that covers Afghanistan. It's called Project Taliban. Do yourself a solid. I'll put it in the show notes. Subscribe to it. Give her a little bit of money, man. She's awesome. She has this one on Taliban and Al Qaeda and TTP are pooling resources. UNSC report warns. And this is the thing that I want to underscore to everybody is that I hate the naming conventions because this is what it does to people. They're just like, is like the Pakistani Taliban, or is it the Tajik Taliban? Or is it the Haqqani network? Or is it the Peshawar? Oh gosh. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Or is it the Peshawar 7? I mean, all this stuff, right? And then after a while, you just want to hit yourself in the head with a baseball bat. And here's the thing. They're all the same. They're all intermarried. They've all been there forever. There is a certain proportion that are going to try to kill us from this certain little area here based on the past 20 years of demonstrated effects. If you want to think that leaving Afghanistan was going to protect us, how did that New Orleans Day attack work out? Was it good or was it bad? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and we could dive in and completely nerd out on the Taliban and how there was the 2 groups of the Taliban, the Quetta Shura and the Shower Shura.
Yeah, there we go.
One was more aligned with Al Qaeda, and the other was more domestic operations, if you will. Right? We could completely nerd out on that, but the reality is just like you said. I mean, they are birds of the same feather, right? And so we can put different lines and names and try to delineate, but at the end of the day, it's a group of folks working together under several different flags, but all unified for one goal and attacking the West, the U.S., and our allies, and even some of our adversaries is very real of their ambitions collectively as a group. And to see them get a operating space to train and plan attacks, just like they did prior to 9/11, it ought to be concerning. Whether we think we should have been in Afghanistan for 20 years, whether we should have left long ago, whether we went in with a strategy to win, whether we never had a strategy to win, whether we were on the cusp of victory or on the cusp of defeat, none of that really matters.
None of it. It's interesting, but not relevant right now to what's going to happen. If you want to continue doing, this is what I call America in Afghanistan. For those only listening, not viewing us on YouTube or whatever, I'm basically looking at myself down on my belly button because I call it navel gazing. It's the propensity that we do. It's like, what does it say about us that we're doing this, about us, about them, about all of us in this big world that we're all living in? And we have all these debates about all these things. But at the end of the day, whatever you think about the other things, there's this big problem that's going to happen from here. So maybe we should all think about doing something about it. There's one option, which is just to put your head right in the sand. And that would be called the Joe Biden last 4 years. I'll say it. James, don't feel like you have to. This is just a GCV thing. I mean, it was an option. I didn't like it. Now, I don't know what the Trump plan is. Maybe I've been like, I will give the man. He won the election. Some people don't like that. Whoever you voted for. I voted for somebody. It wasn't him. I don't care. God bless you. I don't really care. Somebody here is going to have to pay a price for it if he decides to really go and cut out the refugee services, because now we're going to increase the propensity for an attack. That doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but I've been around. I've been doing this stuff for a while, It might. How about that? It might. And here's what I fear. Whether you voted for Trump or not, I don't really care. What happens next here? So what is the next step? Because this isn't it. Maybe, look, maybe Donald Trump is about to arm the anti-Taliban resistance, and he's going to form a government in exile, and this is part of a 15-step thing going on where he's actually outthinking me. People have done it my whole life. Maybe this is all part of the plan. And like we're going to overthrow the Taliban and like, you know, we're going to start over and we won't get involved. We'll just give them money and let them like spend it how they want because they know how to do it better than us. If that's the plan, I will be on my table clapping, weeping. I might even become a Donald Trump fan. You know what I'm saying? But I just don't think that's it. I'm afraid what's next, you know?
Yeah, and the one thing that I will find a little bit of optimism in.
James!
So
Look at you! See, he's been retired longer than me. That's why. That's why. He's starting to see the sunny side up again. I love that for us. Go ahead, James.
So as I look at Afghanistan and 20 years of war, but it was also 20 years of democracy in Afghanistan, right? And I'm of the camp where I believe that and I plan on writing a piece for you that may come out before this podcast.
Everybody heard him say this. He owes me an article, hopefully free of too many comments. We don't have to get into that. Go ahead, bro.
But I'm of the camp that I believe that we were on the cusp of victory, not the U.S. winning, but Afghans winning, right?
Oh, I can't wait to read it. I think that there's some merit to that case.
So, and you've said in the past, as you've written in the past, and other people way smarter than me have written, you know, we were at the tipping point in Afghanistan where the Soviet-trained military leadership was handing over control to the American and Western-trained military officers.
Yes.
Right, and so we had a generation of general officers that were coming into roles, but were taking over roles that probably would have, had we continued for another 5 years, been a striking difference over the next 5 years as they were over the previous 20, right? Guys who knew what they were doing, who were effectively trained in the type of war that they were going to have to fight, and we had enabled them to come up in the ranks in some pretty significant portions of the military. Now, they lack some critical enabling stuff, right?
Yeah.
Logistics, they were reliant on us.
Sure, of course.
Some things over the next 5 years we probably could have continued to step back.
Sure.
And we could have done that in a way where
of course.
It was not the U.S. on the front. It was not the U.S. in the face. It was the Afghans out there. And we could have done it much more remote advise and assist and that sort of thing. But I think we were on the cusp of that tipping point, right?
Well, you know, I don't know if we were on the cusp of it. I think it was a possibility. I think, you know, a lot of things we would have had to have a culture of learning and have a culture of, you know, I've been thinking about this my whole life, since 2021. You know, what would have victory? What could have happened? What this, that? I think that the number one thing that everything was fixable until we decided to sign the Doha Agreement. And I know every like Republican or MAGA or whatever is like, oh, the Doha Agreement. It was Biden who did the execution. Don't worry, I'm getting to him next, everyone. That Biden, you know, that Trump signed the Doha Agreement, and you know what? If I were him, I'd blame it on Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and then Zalmay Khalilzad, the magic Afghan. And I can say that. I speak Pashto. Go away. The magic Afghan. Okay, so blame it on him, but like they're responsible for signing a surrender agreement, which not only was that, it also stabbed our allies in the back by keeping them from conducting offensive operations. This is a known thing. So it's not even an abandonment. A young lady, an Afghan woman on Twitter actually corrected me. She said abandonment was like basically like putting it light, because what we did was we stabbed our allies, gave them over to our enemies, and said, we're going to leave, okay? So just let us leave. you can take the corpse and like we won't have anything to do with you. I don't make these things up. This is basically what happened. I mean, am I wrong? Maybe I'm being too harsh.
No, and I often refer it to, we not only did we surrender ourselves, but we surrendered the Afghans on their behalf without giving them a seat at the table, right?
And here's the thing, James. Even after all that, most of them still love America.
Yeah, but the next bit of optimism, right?
Okay, fine.
Is
Here we go.
not only did
I
we
love
have
this.
a generation of Afghans who had been trained in the military side, a generation of Afghans who had their entire life lived in democratic Afghanistan, right? Girls, their entire life had been allowed to go to school. We had given that taste of freedom. And it wasn't just the U.S. and the West. The Afghans secured it. Like they did the hard work to make it happen, right? But at the same time, we've got a generation of military members who grew up in that same thing, defending
Absolutely.
Afghans as they built their democracy.
Yeah.
Right. And the one bit of silver lining, I think, with the current administration and on this topic is that they are much more filled with Afghan veterans that grew up in the ranks, not just went into Afghanistan as a colonel and spent the rest of their career at the colonel and lieutenant colonel.
This is why he was my senior NCO. This is why he was my NCOIC, people. Right here, all of this brilliance. This is James. James is smart as shit. Sorry, I started feeling proud. I was just sorry. I had to interrupt you.
So I hold a little bit of optimism that there are more
Look at that, man,
in the current administration that feel the way that you and I do about what this reporting out of Afghanistan means, right? Like
it's the hope that kills at the end. That's what I usually tell people. Let me get a little bit of that hopium. Hold on one second. This is a vape. It's nicotine, people. Don't freak out, okay? Everybody freak out, okay? I don't care. I don't drink. Give me a break. I love this hopium. The hopium that you're giving me. I'm gonna take it. But you're right. You're right.
Those who fought in this particular war, right? Not just GWAT writ large, but in Afghanistan, who are emotionally invested and fought at the ground level, not fought the war as a big map and moving this to there and what is the strategy? What's my main effort? Right? But no kidding, the guys that were out there shaking hands with Afghans, trying to win lines, the guys that were out there trying to actually put together, put into practice these strategies, these coin concepts, building the relationships.
Sure.
That as we look at this reporting coming out of Afghanistan, that Afghanistan is turning into the safe haven that we went there and spent 2 decades trying to prevent it from ever becoming again. We see that for what it is. Like it's troubling. It's worrisome.
Yes.
Right. And so we understand the risk that America faces with near peer competitors.
Absolutely.
We understand the needs that Indo-PACOM has, the U.S. combatant command in charge of.
Good man. He's even giving you combatant commands, people.
And we understand that we are a decade away from needing the pivot to the Pacific, the realignment.
It's going to happen any day, man. Look, if we just say we're going to stop doing shit, that means we're going to stop doing it. Always.
But I think we also understand that U.S. Central Command, the combatant command in charge of Afghanistan,
and the broader Middle East, yes.
Yeah, Afghanistan, and
Pakistan and India.
The broader Middle East, like they still have residual needs that can't be abandoned, right?
Sure.
Because this stuff is happening.
Sure.
You may not hear about it, you may not know about it, but you can bet that the CENTCOM commander does. Right?
Yes.
You can bet that his intelligence staff does.
Yes.
And they are registering needs at the national level for the ability to go in and continue to, number one, monitor their stuff, but also be able to put into reality what the Biden administration promised us were over the horizon counterterrorism capabilities.
Absolutely.
And while those do exist, they're not as robust as they need to be to deal with an Afghanistan that has become a power projection platform for the gamut of terrorist organizations that are there today. And so those of us in industry are working
In the
really hard.
industry. There you go, baby. I love that.
Those of us in
Sell
industry
out
are
with me
working.
tonight. Sell out. I'm just kidding, man. You can make that money. To all my veterans out there saying, "What do you mean?" I'm kidding. If you are working somewhere in the industry, you take that paycheck and spend it on something nice. Go right ahead.
We're working very diligently to help build out a more robust counter over the horizon counterterrorism capability at a much more affordable price for the American taxpayer, much more lethal end result for when we need it to be, and to enable us to continue to monitor this stuff and be able to intervene to prevent that from actually projecting out and becoming Afghan planned terrorist planned in Afghanistan operations, external operations that would affect the homeland.
You know, and all that brilliantness that you just said, I want to kind of highlight one thing. You were talking about your optimism on multiple fronts, and I want to expound on perhaps a little bit of optimism. You know, I did not vote for President Trump. God bless those who did. I voted for Kamala Harris, kicking and screaming, but nevertheless, I pulled the lever. Whatever. I would just say that to my friends on the left part of the aisle or wherever you sit in this weirdness that we call tribesmanship, here's a little hope for you. I know right now you're like, and I'm like, I don't freak out completely, all right? You know, if you're in a state that does edibles or anything like that, enjoy yourself. I don't think you should drink, but if you like to have some, go right ahead. Let's raise, you know, it's not all bad. We are out of the political power base. The broader anti, not like Trump. And everybody, don't do this. A couple of things. Number one, I saw Ezra Klein talk about reviving something like the Resistance. Do yourself a solid. I don't care what you call yourself. Don't call it the Resistance. Just, it's not going to work. It's just not good. Number two, however, something of optimism. You have a lot of great talent on your bench that are veterans. Why isn't Wes Moore out talking about this? He should already be out in front of cameras talking about his Afghan allies. You know who else should be out front? Seth Moulton. Get him out there. There's another one from Colorado who was an Army Ranger, 75th Ranger Regiment guy. Get Jason Crow. Get him out there immediately and have him start talking about this stuff. Have Tammy Duckworth. Look, she didn't serve in Afghanistan, but she was in Iraq, and she's a double amputee. Consider herself an American hero. I don't know why she wasn't the vice president. When it comes this year, time for, airing of grievances, this will be one of mine. Why wasn't she the vice president instead of Kamala Harris? Neither here nor there. But just telling you this one thing. Like, it all seems bad. We don't know what's going to happen. This is just some news, some reaction. Maybe everything will be great, and me and James won't have a podcast to talk about terrorism. We all hope for that eventuality. But I would just tell you this. You have some talent. You have some talent. Put them out there. Put them out there and let them talk to people that didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Joe Biden. I mean, he wasn't on the ticket. He couldn't make the debate stage. Nevertheless, right? Kamala Harris. You know what? Let them go and let them talk to some MAGA people. You know why they know better? Because they were in the military and they've had to serve alongside all types of people. Some people that are like super socially conservative. Some people who are like culturally conservative. Some people who like make Bernie Sanders seem like, I don't know, the Democratic Leadership Conference. There's all sorts of people in the military. All those veterans that you have, they know how to figure it out. And at least have a conversation with somebody about something, even if they're yelling at them, to be like, it's all right, man. Fist bump. You have talent. Please use it. This is just me. This is not this guy right here. This is me. James, if you want to expound on it, feel free to. If not, we can talk about anything you want.
Yeah, so the one thing that I would add to that is not just go out and talk about it. Going out and talking about it's going to be important, right? We need to get those people off the bench on the Democratic Party who have a emotional vested interest, just like guys like you and I do, our brothers and sisters who serve there that are now serving in Congress and other political offices. But we also need to find where we've got common ground, because those that are on that bench, those that are serving in Congress on the Democratic side, they are not in the majority. But there's some things that I believe Afghan veterans on both sides of the aisle can probably agree on. The change in this policy regarding resettlement of Afghans who helped us, right? I think we can find enough common ground to inspire the right legislation to happen, right? It's going to be probably outside the agenda aims of an administration, or of this administration, but the vote is tight enough in the House and the vote is tight enough in the Senate that when we come to compromise, we can band together, right, left, Afghan veterans, to force some changes in policy that would continue some of these things and make them right. And honor.
And you know what? Maybe that, I will say again, maybe this is all part of, like, they're closing this down but opening up something else. I don't know. Who knows? But look, you don't have to agree with anything that we said politically. You can just, like, throw tomatoes at me and call me, like, a cuck lib or a Trump fluffer. Some lady called me that this week on Twitter. It was cute. Whatever. That's fine. But do yourself a solid. Support this cause. It's a worthy cause for us to, support the Afghans who were vetted. I mean, really vetted, not by the DHS. Sorry, I could go on all night. But really vetted by maybe Afghan veterans and, I don't know, some Afghan allies who could really vet it. Get those people here. Maybe it's all that. And maybe we can do something like that. And maybe we can actually do something about, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda without, making deals with people who murdered American soldiers. But hey, that's just my hope and prayer. So, hey, for everybody out there who is following us or watching this or whatever, however you do it, we are going through a little bit of cosmetic change. At the beginning, you'll have the normal intro for maybe another episode or two, and then we're going to come back with a whole new style and thing for Shoulder to Shoulder. It's now called Grumpy Combat Veteran, and it's now called Shoulder to Shoulder without anything else. Our other podcast that just launched is Voices of the Resistance. We have another one called Service Unplugged, which is a monthly podcast, and we have one that's kind of dormant. This is Stories from My Brothers, but we are writing, we have stuff every day at GCVfriends.com. Be something else, but right now, GCVfriends.com. Our social media is going to be going through a little cosmetic change, but nevertheless, you can follow us for now. You just go to Twitter, AggieWill00. You'll find it eventually. There's also a Shoulder to Shoulder Twitter. There's a bunch of them. We're on YouTube. We're on Blue Sky. Hey, liberal friends, I'm on Blue Sky. Who says it? A John McCain Republican doesn't even try to reach out to my progressive friends. I have lots of them. Look, we are trying to get our voices heard because what me and James and other Afghan refugees who write for us and come on the podcast, really all we want, and I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, all we want is for you to listen to our stories, maybe act with a little bit of compassion to our allies, and help us heal by joining forces with us. That's my pitch. That was pretty good. If you don't put any money in the tip jar after a sermon like that, I don't know what to tell you. Come on. I'm not a Gentile, but that was pretty good. I've been in some congregations where I'm supposed to pass it around. So pretend that I'm passing around the tip jar. Tipping is always appreciated. You can be a paid subscriber. It's exactly $2.50 for being a founding member. You can put it right there. If you really want to get crazy and give me $1,000, I have a nonprofit. It's called the Afghan American Veterans Alliance. It's not a secret. But if you really want to get crazy and make it rain, look, I'm a capitalist now. I'm out of service. I will do whatever. What do you need me to do? Should I hop on one foot, put the money in the tip jar, and I will do what I can to make you happy? I mean, Don't go crazy on me. But hey, we have a lot of different things that try to help Afghans, okay? There are many organizations that we support on GCV. We support No One Left Behind. We support God knows how many organizations that are inside of the Afghan evac. We support independent journalists like Lynn O'Donnell, Beth Bailey. We support people who have been part of this effort, who are civilians, Kate Kavarovic. We support a lot of people and their voices. And so whoever you are, if you're listening to this, we are all part of the broader anti-Taliban and anti-radical Islamic terrorism resistance. And if you want to be part of that resistance, do me a favor and become a subscriber, become a paid subscriber, become a founding member. Go to my website. Or if you have zero money and you're a baller on a budget, shoot me an email on gcv.friends@gmail.com and say you want to be a part of it, but you just a little broke. I'll probably just make you a founding member just for emailing, okay? So, hey, I'm a man of the people. That's what I like to say. James, you got anything before I say goodbye finally?
No, just thanks for having me back, Will. So it was a pleasure talking to you about this today.
Yeah.
Not topics we want to talk about, honestly.
Right.
But
Right.
It's, I think, important conversation still to have.
Yeah, my friend James here is going to be on the show as often as he can be. He's a working man. He's a family man. But he'll be co-hosting us on Shoulder to Shoulder when we bring people on. So you'll be having to deal with that beard. Look at that beard. I want people to look at that. I can't grow a beard like that. So this is a man with no ability to grow a beard. I get like a little bitty mustache. And it's just not a good look for somebody like me. I just take it off, right? This man, my good friend James, he's got a Civil War era beard. I could see, or from the north or the south, I could see somebody looking like that leading a charge. I'm jealous. I'm jealous of it. I just want you to know that, man. All right, everybody, I'm gonna stop goofing off, I promise. Hey, everyone, we hope that you have a great week. And until next time, this is GCV6 and my buddy James saying out.